Hi, I'm Sarah Tilley from Curious Maths. In this video, I'm going to show you my take on that classic game of noughts and crosses. Now, I'm a massive noughts and crosses fan, and over the years in my classes, we've always had a game of noughts and crosses, and actually, in some cases, we had noughts and crosses competitions. So it's really popular with children, really easy to play, and actually really good for a brain break. So if you notice your child is losing concentration, you want to just get a bit of life back into them, then something like this would be great. So in this video, I'm going to show you my take on it, because over the years, I've extended the idea of noughts and crosses to include numbers. The focus of this noughts and crosses game is really what you want it to be. So you could focus on an area that your child has been working on in school, maybe something that you've been practicing at home, or maybe just something you want to just revise. And when I'm in the classroom, I often try and find little activities that just revise that learning to help children remember more. So the rules are exactly the same as the classic noughts and crosses game. The aim of the game is to get 3 in a row, either vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. And as I mentioned already, the maths focus is just completely up to you, and I'll do a demo of that in a moment. Now, this game is usually played 1 versus 1, but in the maths classroom, I have extended it to do 2 versus 2 where I can, because actually there's quite a lot of maths chat that can go on in this game, especially my adapted version. Now, the key thing to remember is as long as you've got 2 different maths ideas, then this game will work. You need something to represent the noughts and something to represent the crosses, and then the game will work. Here is an example of a game board, and here is the traditional noughts and crosses grid in the middle. So the focus for this game is going to be square numbers and not square numbers. So you can see that that's easily replaced by noughts and crosses. So there's nothing similar about what the player 1 will be listing here to here, what the player 2 will be listing. So as part of the game, what I usually do is give children a chance to actually list what is a square number if they're player 1 and what is not a square number if they're player 2. And actually both are just as skilled as the other, because children need to be able to calculate and recall square numbers. But actually knowing what a square number isn't helps you remember what it is. So I use not a lot in my maths classrooms. So what I've done here is listed some of the square numbers, and I always give children a chance to do this so that they're not thinking on the spot and making mistakes when they enter it into the grid. So player 1 is going about their business listing all the square numbers, which are the circled numbers. And player 2 is starting to list those numbers which are not square. And then we play as usual. So someone's got to start. So let's let player 1 start. And they could put their 1 in the middle. Player 2 can respond with their 3. Player 1. Player 2. Not a square number, etc. And you can play out the game until somebody gets either 3 in a row in a horizontal, or 3 in a row in a vertical, or 3 in a row in a diagonal. Here's another example of noughts and crosses with numbers, and actually this one's a little bit more interesting than the first one. So the first example was actually something that is and something that's not. There was no crossover between the noughts and crosses, but the beauty of number is that you can bring that crossover in. Look at this example. Player 1 is going to use numbers which are multiples of 2, and again they've started to list the multiples of 2. Player 2 is going to use multiples of 3. But what you'll notice is there's some crossover, because 6 is a multiple of 2, and it's also a multiple of 3, as is 12, as is 18, etc., etc. Now, there's no limit on the size of the number your child chooses to use. I just started from the beginning, just came naturally to me to start from the beginning and build up. But what it does is it gives some more options to the game, because actually, if player 1 puts this 6 in a place that player 2 can use it, they can actually include it in their 3. So it's quite exciting. I'll show you what I mean. So let's say player 1 goes first and puts a 2 in the middle. Player 2 needs to write a multiple of 3, and they choose to put 3. Player 1 hasn't thought about the fact that 6 is also a multiple of 3, and they pop it there. They think they're setting themselves up for a diagonal 3 in a row, but player 2 has noticed that 6 is a multiple of 3, as is 3, and by putting any one of their other numbers in, they have won the game. If you are going to use multiples as a way to make your noughts and crosses with numbers a little bit more challenging, then just look out for these pairs of numbers that don't work. So if player 1 had multiples of 2 and player 2 had multiples of 4, then player 1 would be at a massive advantage because every single multiple of 4 that player 2 put down is also a multiple of 2. So things like 2 and 4 and 4 and 8 and 3 and 6 and 5 and 10, they don't work very well at all because one player has a huge advantage. So do try and mix it up. Other ideas that would work well like this would be factors. So factors are numbers which divide exactly into another. So you could do factors of 20 and factors of 18, for example. That would work quite well.